is a marathon runner and worked in a hospital. My mom, Ana Maria, was a lunch lady in the Catholic elementary school that we went to. I'm the youngest of five, and on paper, all of us are amazing artists in a lot of ways. My oldest sister was a model, fashion model. My other sister, Lilian Rivera, is an accomplished novelist who just released her first adult fiction book. Her previous work was all in the young adult fiction genre. And my brother Hector Jr. is the reason I became a poet. And he's an amazing songwriter in the bomba music tradition. And then, yeah, my other brother Edgar is my homie. Me and him kind of grew up mostly together because of age and the fact that my other siblings left home. So, like during my formative years, it was me and my brother Edgar.
That's good. So, who were your early influences? I know you just mentioned your brother, was a thing, but at home and in the neighborhood in music and writing.
That's a great question. Definitely my brother Hector was the first person that exposed me to poetry and that spoke to me. So the poetry that I was exposed to in school was written by old dead white men. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't relate to it per se. Now I can go back to the classics and appreciate it. But back then I needed something that empowered me and showed me, oh, I got something to say as well. So that was my first influence in terms of writing and poetry. And in terms of music, my first love, like I immediately gravitated to salsa for some reason. I loved it. And the first voice that spoke to me was Héctor Lavoe. And then the first song, El Cantante, happens to be written by Rubén Blades. And then I discovered Rubén Blades music, and that's why my name is Flaco Navaja now.
I fuck with Rubén Blades hard when I was in Cuba, like I was in Cuba. But that's good that you just said that because now the big question that was that. Your name Flaco Navaja connects to Rubén Blades and Pedro Navaja. So tell us the story behind why you chose it.
So, like I said, I always wanted to be a singer since a kid, since I was young. I've had dreams of being the person I am now, literally, since I was a kid. I had dreams of myself on a stage with musicians behind me. I had dreams of myself by myself on a stage telling stories. I've had these dreams all of my life. So, the way I connected to Ruben is like I remember like loving salsa music and then going down a rabbit hole of his music. And what clicked to me was when I found out that he wrote the words to El Cantante because I was a big Hector Lavoe fan, right? And then I discovered Pedro Navaja. And one day when I was 10 years old or so, I was hanging out in my best friend's house and I'm singing Pedro Navaja to myself. And then my boy's father, may he rest in peace, Heriberto Colon, he sees me and he goes, Mira este, Flaco Navaja. And then 10 years later or so, when I did my first poetry open mic, I didn't want to use my real name. My real name is Osvaldo Antonio Rivera. And growing up, teachers butchered my name all the time. So it's nerve wracking enough to go on stage to do something you're not necessarily used to doing or scary, right? The last thing I needed was them to mess up my name right before I'm about to go on stage. So maybe, ese nombre, Flaco Navaja, came to mind. Bang, I wrote that down and it stuck. It's been 30 years.
Yeah. So you became a regular at the Nuyorican Poets Café. So what did that place mean to you as a young man?
Man, that place, it's a legendary venue. So it is the birthplace of an entire genre of expression. Puerto Ricans and Puerto Ricanos in New York, we had this movement in the 70s called the Nuyorican Poetry Movement. And it was this arts movement. There were Nuyorican painters that would hang out with poets and actors and playwrights. And out of the group of people came this place because they needed a place to come congregate. And the Nuyorican Poets Café was that. So growing up, when I first started doing poetry, I used to sneak in there.
Oh, wow.
Like I would go, and I knew the doorman, he knew. It was just that I kind of stood out because I came at a point where I was a young Puerto Rican dude, right? Super young, and my approach to doing poetry was different from everyone else because I chose to sing a cappella songs, some salsa songs, and then I'll do a poem based off of what I just sang.
Oh, damn.
You know what I mean? And the reason why I did that was because I always wanted to sing. The poetry was a vehicle that allowed me to sing because I didn't grow up in a musical home per se.
Yeah.
So that stood me apart. So I will go to the Nuyorican, sing dinero, no money to learn to pay to get in. And then I'll go to the bouncer, my man, Julio Dalmau. And his brother is one of the famous basketball from the Puerto Rico team, Dalmau.
I forgot the name.
So Julio Dalmau was the doorman at the Nuyorican Poets Café for many, many years. And I would go to the door and I'll be like, hey man, I'm one of the featured artists today, you know? Or I'll be like, yo, I gotta use the bathroom, can I, you know? And he'd be like, go, bro. And then I would get on the open mic. And then eventually there was an open mic there that was legendary, and it was called All That Hip Hop, Poetry, and Jazz. It was a hip hop and poetry open mic, and everyone was accompanied by a 3-piece jazz band. And they improvised the beats. So it was like an MC would go up and the band would just start playing a beat and you gotta rock to that. And that was my training. And so I used to go there for that show, and the dude that hosted it is a legendary DJ and radio personality named Babito Garcia. Babito Garcia, when he decides to not host anymore, gives it to me to be the host. Wow. And that was my training. That was when I fell in love with improvised music. That was an opportunity for me to sing salsa with a jazz band. I would tell them to play I'll tell the bass player, who was this Russian legend jazz guy named Boris Kozlov, who was playing the bass of the Charles Mingus Big Band. Charles Mingus, legendary bass player. This dude used to play Charles Mingus's bass at this open mic that I'm hosting. You know what I'm saying? And then I would tell him, yo, play this. Then I'll tell the piano, just, vibe out. Then I'll tell the drummer, be like, yo, don't think salsa, think like, I don't know, drum and bass. So it'll be like, it's start crazy. And then I'll sing El Ratón from Cheo Feliciano, and then like improvise some rap and whatever. And that was my training. So that's what the Nuyorican Poets Café means to me. It was the foundation of everything that I was able to build into.
Cool. So and then the next thing, HBO Def Poetry Jam changed your path, So what did it mean to represent Boricuas and Bronx pride on a national stage?
Yeah, man. So Def Poetry really opened it up to a lot of things. One thing that Def Poetry did was it exposed the whole country to different pockets that were doing this spoken word thing. Like, we were in our own little kind of bubbles, like the New York crew. There was a whole LA movement, Atlanta, Chicago. So that was cool. The thing I loved about Def Poetry was to see the creme de la creme of each of these cities come and represent their cities on such a big stage. And then for me, it was interesting because it felt like validation. Because we put in so much years at that point. You know what I mean? Def Poetry came around 2003 or 4. I started my career maybe in 98. So by that point, it was like it was like, yeah, we actually are doing something that's worthy of attention. So that was cool. And then Deaf Poetry, doing that on HBO led to me traveling the world. I spent a month in Edinburgh, Scotland. Because so the show was an HBO series, but then they did a live Broadway version of it. And it ended up winning a Tony Award in New York City. And then that show toured. One of the original cast members of that show was my best friend, my man Lemon Anderson, who is in that Boricua poem. Me and him are the guys that do that poem. And he was like, yo, y'all gotta call my boy Flaco. So when the tour came, one of his, if I'm not mistaken, his first child was about to be born, so he wasn't gonna go. So he was like, yo, they ended up hollering at me to sub for him.
Oh, wow.
Right? And then something else happened where another of the artists couldn't go. So Lemon ends up going. So we ended up traveling together. And we went to Edinburgh, Scotland for a month. We went to Sydney, Australia, doing poetry, man. We went to Auckland, New Zealand. You know, two Boricuas in New Zealand. Like, yo, this is crazy. You know, it was such an amazing experience.
Cool, that's cool. So you've been described as a sonero who carries Hector Lavoe's spirit, but how do you blend salsa with spoken word and soul? You know, like it's hard, you know.
You know, it goes back to the training I received hosting that show at the Nuyorican Poets Café. I've always been comfortable with the musicality of poetry and rhythm. So the way I blend that into my salsa with the band is the inspiration for me in terms of doing that with the salsa and all of that came from Tego Calderon's El Abayalde album.
Oh.
And he has a song there. It was Plante Bandera, right? And there's a section in the song where he just breaks into a rap, right? But the music doesn't change. So it's not like there was this hip hop drum beat that came up behind it. It was still the Sonero section of a salsa song. But then all of a sudden he's like, hey, and so that very much inspired me to that can work.
Yeah.
You know, so with my shows, in the middle of a salsa song, let's say El Cantante, I'll tell the guys to stay in this little vamp and ding dang, tickety ding dang, and then I'll just kick a poem by Hector Lavoe, which will lead to the sonero section. And I don't know, it's throughout the years, this has I've developed this as my voice and my approach.
Cool. So tell us about your show Evolution of a Sonero. What inspired it, and how those audiences respond when they see their culture reflect your story.
Nice. Evolution of a Sonero is it's a one-man musical. It's me with a salsa band telling stories about my life through monologues, poetry, and song. The structure of the show is that I break down the structure of a salsa song and use that as a metaphor for my life. Intro, verse 1, the first time I heard El Cantante, and it's a whole monologue as my uncle, who is a Vietnam vet, and he's telling me a story about how he was a part of the organization that did a takeover of Hostos Community College because they were about to shut it down, and it was the only bilingual college in New York City. And they do this whole thing, and they do a sit down, and and then he's like, yeah, but there was always music playing. And matter of fact, you remind me of this guy. Yo, listen to this, clang. And then all of a sudden, I sing a cantante. You know, so that was kind of the flow. And the show has been received beautifully. We've done it in New York City at the Public Theater, which is a very prestigious establishment. We've did it here in Chicago at Urban Theater Company, as well as UNIC. We also did it in Los Angeles. We did a run in LA, and Marissa Tomei came to see it, and Jennifer Lopez came when she was still with Ben Affleck, and they enjoyed it. And So it's a beautiful show. It's been received extremely well, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
And it's funny you said that you did NIU Northeastern because that's where my son goes to.
Nice.
So we were watching. He was just yesterday watching on YouTube some of the stuff, and he goes, "Yeah, I watched it." Like he saw more of the older stuff because that's why he likes poetry. And then he watched the WGN. That's when they say, "Oh, you're Chicago's very own now," And then
Yeah.
and they put it. And you were like promoting the event, and just like, "Man, that was this year." What did I miss? If nobody posted it in the school, I would have been there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that means you need to pay more attention, son. Like, so you're living in Chicago now. How has the city and its Puerto Rican community influenced your work?
Man, this community has embraced me in a way that I couldn't have prayed for. And it's beautiful. I feel that this is home for me. I feel as a New York-born Puerto Rican, we've been fed this center of the universe mentality for a long time. And when I got to Chicago and I realized how organized, how prideful and amazing this community is, I feel like this is a place that people need to do a pilgrimage to. All Boricuas from all over the country, the diaspora, need to come to Chicago. You know what I mean? The fact that we are home to the National Puerto Rican Museum of Arts and Culture, the only museum on a national level to be dedicated to Puerto Rican arts and culture. That's not something small. That's a big deal. And a lot of us, we don't know that. You know what I mean? I didn't know that until I got here. And I was like, oh, whoa, this is amazing. Now, Chicago is a very interesting city because of how segregated it is.
Correct.
So that there's good and bad with that. The good is that it affords, in my opinion, it gives neighborhoods the opportunity to flex their own personality.
Right.
So you go to Little Village, that's a Mexican neighborhood, right? You go to Humboldt Park, it's a Puerto Rican neighborhood. The art on the walls, the restaurants, all of that, and I appreciated that. That's something that is not as prevalent in a city like New York because of its density, and it's just the way it works.
So you've acted on stage, on screen, and on TV. So which role has challenged you the most as an actor?
That's a great question. I think Evolution of a Sonero is a challenge in a very different way because it's me. Although I have musicians on stage, it's me for 90 minutes playing characters, telling stories, and singing songs. So it's a lot. I love it, but that's a lot of work. And it's a challenge in its own. In terms of as an actor, I did a film once called Baby Girl. You can catch it. I think you can find it on YouTube actually. And it was the first role that it was like a lead role. And that one was challenging because of the subject matter. The movie was about a girl, a 16-year-old girl struggled to take care of her irresponsible mother. And, the mom is, let's say, 36. She ends up falling for a dude who's like 26, did time, you know what I mean? So it's still probably emotionally stunted in his teens. And he ends up falling for the little girl. So it's this love thing, and that's the character that I play. So it's like this thin line between being a dude who is just immature or fucking pedophile. You know what I mean? So it was beautifully handled, and that was cool. Me and the director worked closely together to really thread that line. Because I was like, bro, we could lose them immediately. You know what I mean? But if we play it in a way where you humanize this guy, but also realize his immaturity, then that story could and I think it was done well.
Cool. You gotta check it out. So, how do you balance being a poet, a singer, and an actor without losing yourself?
Man, those are all aspects of me. The reason I will lose myself if I don't express all of those things. You know what I mean? I think those things have helped me find myself. and I'm growing into my voice continuously. I think that that's important. Like I had a brief conversation with your son, and I was like, man, if we got a gift, that gift isn't for us.
Yes. Yeah, we have to express it.
It's to be shared. You know what I mean? The most selfish act is to keep that to yourself.
Correct.
You know, and I'm learning to let my voice evolve. I'm learning to lean into aspects of my personality that I tried to shy away from. And right now, in this new aspect of my life, I'm in this search for internal peace, man.
That's very cool. So representation matters. So what do you feel is the responsibility of the Latino artists in today's industry?
I think we have a responsibility to tell our stories and to take control of our narratives. I think this industry is it's very difficult to navigate. A lot of times we have these, especially let's say in film and television, right? It's a difficult task to break these stereotypes. And how long have we been having the same conversation? So I think it's important for us to empower each other by creating together, by doing what other cultures do, like creating their team. You know what I mean? Let's say you see Adam Sandler and he got his whole crew. You know what I mean? And they in their movies and it's awesome. They produce each other's films. They help it. It's all of that. And that's something that we need to create as Latinos. And it, you know, it's difficult because we're so vast. When you say a lot of times we're like, all right, we're all Latino. And you know, as a collective, it's important to kind of come together and use that thing. However, there are so many different types of Latinos, so many different cultures represented in that word, you know? So it's a matter of claiming your individuality as your superpower, as well as finding the common ground to move forward as a people.
You know, I feel you. I got a lot of nieces that are half. And with Puerto Ricans, I always tell them, who do you represent? And you represent the Boricua or the Filipino? And I'm like, well, at least I know your career-wise, you picked the Filipino because you're nurses.
Hilarious.
So he goes, so I hope the Puerto Rican side takes the artistic touch and you start singing, or at least play dominoes, you know, for all.
Yeah.
So, you know, this show's about service beyond service, duty beyond duty. So how do you see your art as a form of service?
Oof. Yeah, absolutely. My art is as a form of service. I have the responsibility and the blessing of being in a position to inspire. So I think following through and continuing to push forward towards my dreams and my goals can also inspire someone else who may be in a place where they don't know which direction to go. That's one. Also, I think as a teacher, it's important for us to pass down this skill set. Spoken word and artistry and like all of these things help me express myself, like being able to express myself on stage in front of a big group of people gave me the confidence to be able to navigate difficult situations with people in power. And that's something that I talk to about with especially young men of color in the hood. I'm like, yo, it's important for us to claim our voices and learn how to communicate because there's gonna come a time where you're gonna be in an anxiety-driven situation. Let's say you get pulled over by a cop, right? And you don't feel like it's right and you shouldn't have been pulled over. A lot of times, some of us will get aggressive as opposed to being like able to communicate themselves with calm and express clearly, like, officer, what's the issue, da 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 da, as opposed to, yo, why you pulling me over? Be like, ah, that just leads to, that doesn't diffuse the situation.
Yeah,
so that has helped me a whole lot, and that's something, passing on those skills is how I view using my art as service, teaching other people to be able to express themselves. And it's not about creating the next generation of artists. It's about creating the next generation of communicators. We need to learn how to communicate with each other, with ourselves, with our families. That in itself will change a whole lot in our community.
I agree. So the biggest question: what message do you want the next generation of Boricua and Latino kids to carry from your story?
That you can do it, that you are enough, that you have a story to tell. We all have a story to tell.
That's my biggest thing on this podcast. I tell everybody, I tell a lot of the cops, they're like, man, but my life, I haven't done nothing. I go, look, I'm not looking for your superhero story of that you solved a murder or you solved He goes, we all have a story. We all have a unique. And I always use that, like every cop made a decision to become a cop for a million different reasons. Nobody's usually the same. The same thing with the military. The military, I always tell people, there's 5 different reasons or choices that they joined the military, because back in the 90s, either you messed up and the judge said you either go to jail or go to the military, or you got tired of the city you're living, you don't have, you want to get out. Maybe gangs, crime, maybe you have a single mother, you want to do something for that. Education. A lot of people join because the military does offer post-military time education. So I tell a lot of people, like, for that, I go, and then some people like me, I had a full right to college. My dad and my mom were together, so I had a good home. I had a good structure, but I was an alpha male, 70s baby that decided, no, a cojones, esto es lo que yo quiero. And of course, 6 months later, after boot camp, I'm calling, go, Mommy, I'm going to war.
Whose idea was this?
Yeah, no more tostones. So, and that's how it is. So we're almost done with the episode. I have a little thing that I do on the podcast that we do lightning round, fun facts. First comes to, first answer. Favorite salsa song to perform live?
El cantante.
Coffee or café con leche? Bronx or Chicago nightlife?
Oof. Bronx.
A poet or singer you bring back to life for a duet?
Héctor Lavoe.
Most unforgettable stage moment?
Man, there's a bit of a long story.
Yeah.
No. Matter of fact, most unforgettable stage moment is Rubén Blades was performing in Lincoln Center in New York City in front of 6,000 people, and we had just met. We had just started hanging out. It was a couple of days after my birthday, and he invites me to introduce him. So we get there, and he's like, he tells the organizers, yo, don't introduce me. This is Flaco Navaja. Give him a microphone. He needs a microphone. He's going to do like a poem, and then he's going to introduce me. He had me open up the show, right? That's a dream alone, yes. Right? And so I do that. Wow, it's awesome. He starts the show. At one point, I need to charge my phone. The only place to plug in is backstage. So I'm like, all right, man, fuck it, I'm going to go. So I walk across the front of the stage where the photographers are, like the media, and he sees me and he points. I go like that, I thumbs up, I keep walking. He starts playing El Cantante. So he wrote the lyrics to El Cantante, and while Héctor Lavoe was alive, Rubén Blades never performed that song. He only performed it after Héctor died. Right? So he starts playing El Cantante. I'm backstage, I plug my phone in. And next thing you know, I hear him go, Flaco! Flaco! And he calls me out on stage. And he goes, this guy reminds me of Hector. And then has me do the Sonero section of El Cantante. Quick fact, he had never heard me sing before that. I could have messed that whole song up. I could have ruined the whole shit. No, he let me.
That's cool. That's cool. So, also a hidden talent outside of art.
A hidden talent outside of art, I'm an endurance runner.
And that's how I saw you in Humboldt Park. Bandera, bandera. I'm like, wait, I'm doing security, and I'm like, oh, there's Flaco.
Yeah.
One Puerto Rican dish you cannot live without.
Man, I think it's rice and beans.
What's on your playlist right now?
On my playlist right now is, I got this one album on repeat. It's Pirulo y la Tribu, and his latest album is called La Calle Linda #5, but it's called Positivo, and all the lyrics are super positive. That one, and then the next one right now on my playlist is my brother Jeremy Bosch. He just put out a Christian salsa album that is amazing, and it's called like The Gospel According to Salsa, something like that. And he is an amazing writer. He wrote all the lyrics, arranged all the songs, played flute on most of the shit, and he's dope. His name is Jeremy Bosch.
Gotta check him out. And word that best describes Flaco Navaja.
Ambitious.
And if you weren't an artist, what would you be?
Man, if I wasn't an artist, I wouldn't be alive.
So Flaco Navaja is proof that art is more than performance. It's survival. It's identity. It's legacy. From the Bronx to Chicago, he carries the rhythm of our people and the stories of our ancestors. His poetry cuts sharp, his music lifts spirits, and his acting brings our culture to life. This conversation shows us that duty beyond duty isn't just about uniform. It's about using your gifts to serve others and honor where you come from. Thank you, Flaco Navaja, for reminding us that every stage is a battlefield for truth and every word is a weapon of hope. This is Duty Beyond Duty. Until next time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was awesome.
The test. I always do the test. Make sure it's safe.
Has it ever? Have you lost? Yeah.
Dang, the story. Yep, for sure. I did an episode with 3 cops.
Yeah.
A friend of mine. Actually, I was doing it during Puerto Rican Fest. I was on.